Hello there, Seraphim17 once again. This is my Dead Space 3 Impossible Difficulty video walkthrough. This is Chapter 10, Now We Know. Anybody who's just tuning in, this is going to be a guide of the game that's hopefully going to prepare people for the challenges of the optional difficulties that you will unlock. Those are Classic modes, Pure Survival mode and Hardcore mode. Because this is the difficulty above the one that those difficulties are set at. So if you can do what I'm going to be doing on this game on Impossible mode, you can do it in the ones below. It's just how it works, and hopefully I will show you some strategies or some interesting ways to approach some scenarios that you might not have thought of yourself. And you know, if you're an absolute Dead Space master and you're just watching this for the witty banter that sometimes accommodates my guides, then you know, welcome, and I hope you enjoy this one as you have the ones before. But a couple of things to point out. If you're playing on co-op, there is a glitch with the talk bars. When you use one to open a door, it uses them off both players, and that sucks dick. That is a really bad thing that I hope Visceral change, because it doesn't seem like it's intended. And you know, tungsten early on can be difficult to come across, so spending it to make those bars is a bit of a choice. You know, you're wasting a potentially useful resource on getting resources back. So kind of gay that that works that way, but now you know, hopefully you'll avoid the pitfalls. Another thing to bear in mind, I don't know why, but this game is glitchy. It's really glitchy, and all games have glitches. It's just one of those things where some of them are much more difficult to find yourself in them. This game is not. This game reminds me of Driver, if ever anybody played that on the PlayStation. Like, there were times in Driver when I'd be running away from the police, I'd take a wrong turn, and I'd hit a wall on a funny angle, and I would fly through the geometry, and I would end up in what I affectionately termed Glitchland. And in Glitchland on Driver, it was just behind the graphics. It was an endless grey-white abyss that you could drive forever. The bottom part of your car, the visuals started getting really flaky and repeating themselves like some kind of bizarre kaleidoscope, and you would eventually get to a point where cars would be randomly parked in the middle of nowhere. And I believe it's because of the way that the engine worked for that game. It would populate the area around you so that it was only rendering, you know, your immediate vicinity rather than everything everywhere, and then slowing down the game. So it would populate this glitchland with cars for no real reason other than you're driving in it and you shouldn't be there. And you'd get to the point where cars were flying through the sky, just firing through the sky and coming towards you. It was just madness. And I've played through this game quite a lot at this moment in time. I've actually finished it, hooray for me, thank Christ on that one. And I've come across a lot of glitches. Weird glitches, silly glitches, funny glitches. Some of them I've shared, some of them I've not. And I don't know if it's a lack of polish, I don't know if it wasn't tested to the fullest extent, but there is a lot of problems with this game in areas that are not necessarily game breaking, but shouldn't really be there in something that's got such a budget, a AAA title, you know, under the EA production house of Visceral Games. But now that you've met up with all your friends, and we've barely had any exposition or any real reason to care any more about them, we're split up from them immediately, and we're about to do some shooting. And it's shooting against real people. And if you're going for the achievements, or the trophies, there is an achievement for, I believe, getting 30 headshots on human soldiers. So feel free to brush up on your accuracy here. If you want to go to crouch, you can push in the right analog, I think it is, that crouches you down. When you aim, you do come out of cover. Right there was a fail on my point. I went to shoot that guy and I ended up shooting the force gun instead of the seeker rifle. Because if you can't tell what I'm using, I am using a fusion of force gun and seeker rifle, which I personally think, at this moment in time, is the best combination of the game for my playstyle. The force gun is only there to support you against crowds. The seeker is there to destroy faces. It is ridiculously powerful. You have to spec towards it, which is a bit of a shame, but it is still deadly. It doesn't have the best clip or the best fire rate, but you can definitely accommodate for that with a couple of upgrades, a couple of tweaks and circuits and things like that. A lot of the internet is buzzing around this weapon called the Evangelizer, which I believe is a DLC weapon, a pre-order bonus weapon, which is an assault rifle and a shotgun combination. I've played a lot with the assault rifles on this game, don't really like them. The pulse rifle's pretty good. Definitely a serious weapon to use, and I think a lot of the weapons are a lot more viable now because the plasma cutter's not as good. And I've been stubborn throughout this guide, guys. I've kept the plasma cutter for the entire run, and I've died quite a lot on moments where I probably shouldn't, and I'm finally realising, looking back in retrospect, the plasma cutter is not the gun it used to be. It's not the gun that wins anymore. It just isn't. It's not the same weapon. And I thought it was just the balancing of this game. I thought it was, impossible difficulty. It made them a little bit tougher, and it isn't. It's the fact they've made the gun worse. Because I was using the pulse rifle the other day, and it was just chopping legs in seconds, and it was making me completely rethink the use of the plasma cutter. And it's got to the point where I barely use it now. I'm almost exclusively the force gun seeker combo, because the seeker is a guaranteed dismemberment when you hit with it. The plasma cutter is not, and I think that's a little bit sad for a Dead Space fan. Because the plasma cutter in the old game, it started off pretty weak, but it got so useful so quickly, and you could do the entire game comfortably with it, because it was the best starting weapon of any game you've ever been given, I think. And they changed it for this one, and it's a shame because it does force more player creativity, but at the same time, Isaac is an engineer. He cuts things with plasma, and it's not the same amazing machine it used to be, which it definitely saddens me. But more soldiers here, guys. My main criticism with these soldiers is you do not tell. There's no visual sign on Isaac when he's getting shot. There's no flinch, there's no reaction, there's no, you don't even see the impacts on your body, you just see your life go down. And if you're unlucky, you'll just see your torso topple off like a teapot, because deaths on this game come thick and fast if you get too close to the people with the guns. If anybody's throwing grenades or rocket launchers, be sure to use telekinesis to chuck it back. It is, not only do you get an achievement for doing it, it saves ammo and it's super effective. The rocket launcher guys are your best friends, believe it or not. They're a dangerous proposition at first, but as soon as you realise you can use them to kill everything, it's pretty great. Like that right then, I got shot and it was a bit more obvious that I got hit, but the amount of times you can get tagged and you don't even realise you've been hit. Because there's one thing about games that you only realise when you watch them back. When I'm playing a game, I don't look at my character, I look in front of him. Because, I'm his eyes. I'm controlling him. I know where he is. I want to know what's in front of me. And you spend so much time looking around Isaac, at the periphery around him, for dangers, for secrets, for paths and things, that you don't spend all that much time looking at him. It's almost one of those things where you get so accustomed to it you don't see it anymore. And then when you watch somebody else play, you'll notice things about the character that you don't see when you play, because you're too busy concentrating on the other things, the other elements. And I find this happens a lot in Gears. If you watch people play Gears and you see them doing the reloads and it all looks really cool, and you think, well, that looks awesome, that's a really nice animation, how come I've never noticed this before? And the reason is because you're playing, you're looking past the cover at the dude running at you, you're not looking at the fancy animation, and it's only when you take a step back that you see some of the finer qualities of games. And it's one of the cool things about doing these guides. I spot things I don't see when I'm playing, and that's why a lot of people will point out, oh, you missed this at a certain time, or you didn't go here at a certain time, because it's easy to see them when you're not playing. When you are playing, your mind is moving so fast, and you're thinking about stuff, you're planning stuff, you're plotting stuff, you're responding, you're reacting. It's interesting stuff. But there's a section coming up soon where I get myself into a really shit spot because of my equipment. And it's because I put faith in the plasma cutter, and the plasma cutter fails me, and it's all to do with the feeders. And I'm hoping that people watching this or listening to this, or even if you haven't, you've just had the insight to take a weapon down there that manages crowds, because if you don't, God, that place sucks balls. It sucks so much balls. And if you're an openly confident, happy game man and you suck balls, I'm not saying that as a bad thing against you, sir. I'm just saying it as a derogatory way to slag off a bad section of a game that I had trouble with. But one thing I've mentioned prior to this video is I'm going to be throwing my research bots, my scavenger bots down as much as I can just to get the ration seals, because I've kind of pretty much convinced myself at this point that you get more ration seals for random bots than you do bots at the depots. You get much less resources, so at first it's going to seem kind of insane. Why would you waste your bots when you can just wait for the resource areas? Did you see that just then? Is that not bullshit, that? There's two guys over there, start shooting that necromorph, he boomer turns and comes for me. And if you're wondering why I'm not aiming in the correct place, I got the claw stuck on a pipe and it physically wouldn't let me aim. And the reason why I do post commentary on these guys is because I would get so angry when I was recording, because when I'm playing a game and I'm playing it seriously, and when I record guides I'm usually playing it semi-seriously. If I have volume on, you know I'm serious. And I think I've got volume on for this section. Every single thing bugs me because I'm in that mode where I want it to be flawless, I want it to be perfect, I want everything to go great, to go smooth, and it never does. As soon as you hit record, everything messes up. Guaranteed. It's just sod's law, it's just the way the world works. But at this moment in time you'll notice I've got the electro coating on my plasma cutter, and the stun and the flinch from the electro coating is so useful. The only thing more useful than it, I think, is stasis. The stasis coating is great, but it doesn't work as well as you'd think it would with some weapons. When I was beating the game the other night with Aiden, we both built ridiculous guns. We decided to go to a bench and just build something different, you know, something stupid that we would never use. I built a rivet gun, chain gun, with a flamethrower that fired cryogenic freezing stuff. And I put stasis coating on it, and the stasis coating of the freeze thrower did not stun the necromorphs. Didn't stasis them whatsoever. They just ran through the frosty breath and just punched me in the mouth. It was not a good time. And I swiftly ditched that weapon for something better. But Aiden stuck with his. Aiden made a double ripper. So just literally 2 rip cores on top of each other, 2 suspended blades, and he was just shredding everything. It was hilarious. But now that I've beat the game, I can share my opinions on it, perhaps, you know, in a more professional manner, rather than saying stuff that I haven't experienced yet or not fully experienced in the game. We did all the side quests, we did all the co-op missions. That is a shotgun guy, by the way. You need to stun him before he shoots. If he shoots, you're dead. There just doesn't seem to be any way of surviving the shot. Unless you upgrade your rig, your life, and all that good stuff, and I haven't done it, nor will I do it for this entire guide. This is a 0 upgrades on life or armor playthrough. I didn't think it was going to be, it's just I was doing it on the co-op one, and I got so used to doing it that I didn't really need it in the guide. Because my mentality for stuff like that, guys, is literally, if I can do an area, or if I can play an area competently, I shouldn't be getting hit all that often. This game is a different kind of cocktail, because the necromorphs are so fast and your guns really don't stun them as well as I would like, that they just seem to hit you a lot. They seem to be in your face before you know where you are. You immediately realise that the game is kind of clunky, and when people are that close to you, dealing with them can be a problem unless you have a specific tool to do so. If you do not have a force gun, a shotgun, or something to knock them back, when the necromorphs are close, this game just turns into an absolute clusterfuck. Like, my brain just shuts down because I don't know how to respond, because I'm getting smacked, I'm about to die, I need to use a med pack, but I can't use one when I'm aiming. I have to come out of aiming to use the med pack, then go back into aiming to try and stun the necromorph, but it hits you again. It's this really weird balance where when anything gets in your personal space, the mechanics of this game just completely break down, and it turns into just this, it's so against you, it's not in your favour at all, because the necros are just deadly. But that's the way it should be. You're a clunky engineer, you're supposed to be this bulking, armoured guy who's, you know, not quite as capable. And one of the things they've done in Dead Space 3 to kind of counteract the fact that when things get close, aiming just goes to shit, they've added melee weapons. And I've not checked or tested the melee weapons on Impossible, but I've tested them on Casual, as I was playing with them yesterday. And I've got to say, Casual mode is The only real difference I've seen is the aggression of the necromorphs and the damage they do to you. Everything else seems the same. Like, they take a beating, even on casual, which I was really surprised at. Like, I shot a black necromorph 3 times with a seeker. That's pretty much the same amount of times I have to shoot it on impossible, so how the difficulty scales seems a little weird at times for me. But going back to the point I was saying, I was using the melee stuff, and firstly, why does melee have ammo? Come on, guys. I could understand petrol if you're using something like a chainsaw, but I'm swinging like a blade thing, and it's costing me bullets, which is dumb as tits because it makes no sense. And the only thing I can think of for why they've done it this way is a balance reason, to stop you from having this win button, because when the necromorphs get close to you, if you hit them with your melee attack, they are stunned. They do not run through it. It knocks them over, it knocks them back, it takes the legs. I was surprised at how useful they were, and I plan to do a co-op playthrough after this that I'm going to record, and I want it to be a challenge playthrough. I want it to be just the most stupid, ridiculous thing that we can do. It has to be possible, though. And I've played around with a couple of ideas. I'm not set on what it's going to be, but it might just be melee only playthrough on impossible, something like that. But it has to be fun, and it has to be entertaining, and if it's not entertaining, we'll do something different. But this is demo territory once again. These are the head crabs that turn zombie guys into gunners. The joy of this weapon I'm using is the stasis coating on the force gun. Not only does it knock them over and slow them, but it's just... I cannot stress how useful it is. I really can't. I would actually implore you to only carry one weapon. A force gun with whatever gun you use to kill things. As long as you've got status coating and you can make a bunch of ammo from the steel resources you've got, you're good to go. You're good to beat the game. Because the force gun is your best friend. And for a lot of people the shotgun is the same, but I think the force gun's better personally. It doesn't do as much damage, but it's guaranteed to just knock the tits off of everybody. But earlier on in the video I was mentioning the resource bot, and I didn't really finish my tangent there, so I'm going to do so now. At first it doesn't seem like it's worthwhile throwing the bots out randomly, because all you're doing is getting more seals. You're not getting as many resources, so it seems like it's, you know, it's a pretty bad value proposition. But what happens is, if you've got 3 bots and you're sending them out pretty reliantly, it takes them about 10 minutes to get back to the bench, and you're guaranteed anywhere from 6 to 12 seals for a lot of the times. And if you're sending out multiple bots, you can get 20 seals. And you only need 60 to get the best packet from the downloadable content. And what happens is, if you get 60, which you will if you're doing it reliably, not only do you get a guaranteed resource of items that is more than sometimes you find when you send the bots out in the specific area, but you get these 2 parts randomized and potentially a 3rd part, which are the best equipment on the game, the Mark V components, which they have passive abilities and they also look slightly different on your gun. And the passive abilities can generally be a bigger clip, faster reload, faster fire rate. They all have a different trait depending on what you're using. And not only are you making the weapon that you're using better, but you're getting the resources you think you're missing out on. So it just seems like such a better strategy of getting gear. And if you have no qualms about using the unlimited resource glitch, or just, you know, watching a film while you keep sending your bots out to get you tons and tons of resource, you can do that. You can spend hours doing that, getting yourself super kitted up, and hardcore difficulty, pure survival, all of that is going to be ridiculously simple. Ooh, watch this bullshit. Oh, that was fair, wasn't it, guys? So glad they did that. And it happens a lot, that in this game. That is one of the areas where I really think that this game is absolutely cheap. There are moments where you press a switch in co-op and you cannot come off the switch. You are stuck to the panel and enemies come and punch you and there's nothing you can do. Hate that game design, hate that choice. So cheap, so pointless, completely unnecessary. And this game is full of that, folks. I think this game reeks of a new dev team or a new blood in Visceral. This feels like the people who made Dead Space 1 and 2 were off working on something else, and they let the younger guys, the younger blood, I'm not going to say the B team because that almost makes it seem like it's the less good team, you know, the team that's not as quality as the A team, because that's not what I mean. But this feels like people who have an idea of what Dead Space is about, but not the experience of what makes it Dead Space as opposed to what makes it just, you know, standard and average. Because a lot of the areas of this game, especially in the final act, the last third of this game, is a pile of dog shit. I'm saying it now, folks, I really am. I tried to love this game, I really did. And the chapter 16 onwards is just a pile of shit. An absolute pile of shit. There is the level design, what they have you doing, it is the most uninspired and it's just bad. And it makes no sense. They've got a fantastic environment, they've got a weirdly compelling reason to be there that is confusing and not that great, but they could have done so much with it and they don't. And that's not necessarily a detriment to Dead Space, because if you think back, all we've ever done in this series has been navigate a really dark and creepy looking spaceship doing monotonous tasks that somehow only an engineer can do them, which generally involve pulling a giant plug out of one socket and plugging it in another socket, something that a 2-year-old could do if he had extremely large muscles and perhaps a pituitary problem. But it just doesn't make any sense in this respect, and I don't know if it's fatigue at the series, because I don't think it is, because I love Dead Space. I can still play 1 and 2 without even feeling remotely bored, but on this game it's just like there's no motivation for doing what you're doing because the story is so terrible. Their excuse for enemy encounters is literally, let's throw everything at them all the time because we couldn't think of a subtle and creative way to combine a challenging ensemble of enemies. It's bad. For a good game, it's bad. And it made me really sad. And me and Aiden yesterday, we beat the campaign. I'm not going to say it too much because my channel's been abseiled by people that seem to think everything's a fucking spoiler recently, and I don't want to ruin stuff if someone hasn't played it. But like the last part of the game, we did all the last bits. There's some weird glitches on the final section, which I've got a video to show you because it makes no sense. Oh, by the way, this section here, this drill bit, I don't know if they've toned down the damage you take from the necromorphs, but I have never took as good a beating on Impossible with a standard life as I do in this fight. And I think it's because they know that it's kind of bullshit that they're throwing everything at you while the drill's up there. But I'm not actually doing this the best way. The best way to do this is have a Seeker. If you freeze the drill, one shot from the Seeker with fully upgraded damage is generally enough to send it back. It doesn't take much with the Seeker. The Seeker is a baller weapon. It is so good. And I don't know why I said baller. I don't even like that expression. But I use the force gun, or what I should be doing here, guys, and what you should do if you want to have the easiest time. Force gun to knock people over, knock them into the drill type deal. Freeze the drill, Seeker it. That is all you really need. I'm just making this look much more difficult than it should be. But you'll notice, nothing... Look at me, it's almost like it's on casual. So strange. If this... Like, look, one punch usually takes half my life, but that one didn't. So the only thing I can think of is this is intentionally toned down, which is good from Visceral because they've realised that this is a really badly designed encounter, but at the same time, weird. Very strange that they've chosen to do that. But as I was saying, the last third of the game, there is a section at the end of the game where you can randomly die. And at first I thought it was timed. I thought it was because this giant like tornado wall of death is chasing you. But then I stood there and stared at it for 20 minutes and it didn't move because it's a bloody wall. It's just a fancy way of blocking a bad vista. That's all it is. So there's no time limit. It's just trying to be really climactic. It's trying to be this big spectacle. So I was thinking there's got to be a reason for it. It's got to be an enemy sniping me. It's got to be, I don't know, a piece of debris hitting me. But it isn't. You just die. For no reason. It happened to us 3 times in co-op. Aiden fell down, his torso flew off for no reason. I was like, what happened, dude? No idea, nothing near me, just died. I was like, okay. Gave him the benefit of the doubt. We ran back forward in the same area, my torso fell off. It's like, what is knocking our torsos off? It made no sense. And then the third time, we did the exact same thing, nothing different, and no one died. And I'm just thinking, oh, maybe it's co-op, maybe it's just one of those laggy glitches or silly, one-offs that happen. And then I got there on this, and I died randomly. When I was controlling the necromorphs with ease, there was no way they were touching me. I was doing everything I needed to do, and boom, my torso flopped off. This here is going to be an encounter later on. I think there's an encounter now, so I start getting creative with the force gun, trying to push this guy down the side of this cliff. This is wasting ammo and wasting time, so don't bother doing it, folks. I was just taking out some insurance on a potential encounter is all. But finishing the tangent before this video ends, we got to the end. We got to the story beats and whatever you want to call them. We did the last boss. The credits started rolling, and get this, there is there's a sequence at the end of the credits. I'm not going to tell you what it is. You probably already know what it is at the point. There's always a sequence at the end of the credits. It's how stories work these days. It's not very long. It's not very good. But you only see it when you're Isaac. If you play on co-op, it boots you to the main menu, and you don't see the ending. So I'm sat there going, dude, what's happening? It's telling me about all the unlocks, and he's watching the fucking ending. Which is terrible. But I beat this game. I felt absolutely no catharsis, no closure. I didn't even feel like there'd been a story. I didn't feel like it had wrapped anything up. I felt nothing. I didn't even feel like I'd beat the game. I didn't feel like I had any more motivation from the first 10 minutes to the end. And that's sad. Because don't get me wrong, Dead Space has never had, a big ending. It's never had a 40-minute recap of everything that's happened and an opportunity for the writer to tell you the vision he was trying to, dictate through these cutscenes. But there was at least something. On this, there's nothing. There's no ending. There's just nothing. Absolutely nothing. Spoiler alert.